Alumni like you. I have on several occasions gone to ask for help, and alumni not only provide the help, but they are glad to have been asked to provide the help. For example, I've been here for 15 years, and I have never seen this room so full. So you all contribute so much to ISB in all the ways that Dipendu mentioned, for admissions, for career services, for mentoring the existing batch, SEAL, then serving as advisors to our RCIs, the centers and institutes, and so on, and IT, and so on. Alumni success is critical to the school's success. Dipendu mentioned all our performance in the rankings, 24th in Financial Times, second in the world among all one-year programs in the inaugural Times Higher Education Wall Street Journal rankings. Do you know the number one factor that determines the rankings? Alumni success. Alumni salaries, alumni percentage increase in salaries, number of students placed by the end of the program, and so on, and so on. So the number one factor that determines all these rankings is the alumni success. And the rankings, they get to know about the alumni success through the surveys that they roll out. So please, whenever you are asked, it is every year it is the batch that graduated 3 years ago that is asked. So whenever your turn comes, please participate in those surveys in large numbers, because that's what showcases our success to the ranking agencies, which contributes to our being ranked as highly as we are. So this event is conceived and organized for the first time by Alumni Relations, headed by but as you know, he is himself an alum of ISB. Yeah, so thank you, Dipendu, for
as long as you don't see the year, it's okay. It shows how old I am. Some of my classmates are here too.
So we plan to make, the purpose of this event is only to thank you for all your contributions. We plan to make it an annual event, and we will involve the alumni volunteers to help plan this event and take it to a higher level. For this event, we have invited leaders from different walks of life to share their leadership journey, and which might help you to reflect on your own and rethink your leadership journey. So let's continue to co-create value for yourself, for ISB, for all of us. ISB's success is your success, and your success is ISB's success. So thank you once again for coming. We are just awaiting our speaker for this next session, who is D Shiva Kumar. Is he here? Sorry, he is outside. Well, since we are waiting for him, I will tell you about a new program that we launched last year, which is the executive FPM, a doctoral, there he is. So I was just telling them about the executive FPM, a doctoral level program that we launched last year that helps you complete your doctorate in 3 years while you are still working. And last year was the inaugural batch, and I'm very glad to tell you that a large percentage of the students who joined last year's batch were ISB alumni from the PGP and the PGP Max. So that's something that you can consider as well. Please come back to school and become a double alumnus of the school. I'm glad to introduce to you Mr. D Shiva Kumar, popularly known as Shiv, who is Group Executive President of Corporate Strategy and Business Development at the Aditya Birla Group. He was born and raised in Bangalore. He graduated from IIT Madras and then IIM Calcutta. He also went on to study at the Wharton School. He first joined as a management trainee in the Consumer Products Division at Hindustan Ziva Gandhi, which some of you might not have heard of. It is now part of Novartis. Then he moved on to Hindustan Unilever, where he spent 19 years in sales and marketing and general management positions. He moved on to Philips India as CEO of the Consumer Electronics Division in 2003. He joined Nokia as Managing Director India in 2006. He was instrumental in pushing low-cost mobile devices across rural India, making Nokia a dominant brand. And his contribution during these times have become case studies at the Harvard Business School. In 2013, he was appointed as chairperson and CEO of PepsiCo Holdings, where he managed brand portfolios across beverages, snacks, and nutrition. So thank you very much, Mr. Shiva Kumar, for coming here and addressing our alumni.
Thank you, and thank you for those kind words, and thank you for inviting me here to speak at this session. So I've been speaking at ISB every year since 2005. I've taken one session or the other every year since 2005. So I was telling the organizers that I must get a long-term service award or some such thing. And nobody has spoken for 15 years on the trot, okay? So when Dibyendu reached out and wrote to me, I said, I'll talk about something because these are alum guys. They've spent maybe 5 years, they've spent 10 years of their career here, okay? Pre-ISB, post-ISB, the bunch. I'm told that the average band you are at is about 8 to 10 years experience. So I said a topic which would be important for them is to rethink their leadership journey now. Okay, they've seen leadership in the past, they've practiced leadership in the past. I said I'll talk to them about what leadership is going to be in the future and how do you get ready for it. So that's what I'm going to cover for you over the next 60 minutes, maybe less, maybe 45 minutes. And then please have a powwow, ask me whatever you want. Okay, you're most welcome to ask me any question. Okay, does it make sense? Yeah. Okay, so let's go. First up, first thing is the MBA degree is a business visa with an expiry date. It is not a green card. Many MBA grads do not recognize this simple thing. The MBA degree at best opens the first door and the first window. That's it. Not beyond that. Most MBAs do not understand the simple concept. An MBA is not a guarantee. It's not a guarantee at all. And many people look at it as a guarantee and get disappointed after that. Okay, so think about this as a visa with an expiry date. And even with a visa, the immigration officer has the right not to allow you. Remember that. That's true of visas. Okay, the immigration officer can say, go back. Okay, so this is a visa with a very clear expiry date. It is not a green card. That's the first thing. Okay. Second thing I want you to think about is, when the MBA course was started many years ago, 100 years ago, Harvard was 1918. So when it was started 100 years ago, it was started to teach critical thinking skills to people. So by definition, the MBA has never been a social purpose degree, or by definition, it has not been an emotional degree. So all the stuff we've learned in MBA, which is prevalent even today, which is the case study method, which is the SWOT analysis, etc. Okay, they are all thinking algorithms. They are not feeling algorithms. They are not social algorithms. The concept of a social enterprise, of doing social good, has not been in textbooks for many, many years. So the MBA by definition teaches most people to be rational in their thinking and to look at everything as an equation. That is not how the world is today. That's what I want to point out to you. Next, in a future world, results matter, not degrees. Results matter. Every company I've run, I've been CEO for 17 years, the only thing I look at is results. I just don't worry whether the person is from an IIM, an ISB, an institute. HR has all classifications, A class institute, B class institute. I'm least bothered about that. I always have told people, show me guys who are A class result guys. That's it. That's the guy I will reward. Okay, Henry Ford said it many, many years ago. He said, I don't care whether I get a guy from Harvard or from prison, as long as the guy delivers. He took it to the extreme limits, okay? Equating MBAs to prison, but many MBAs have gone to prison, as you know, okay? Okay, so in a future world, what matters is results and not degrees. So the first thing you need to think about as a future leader is results matter. You have to be absolutely clear that results matter. Now the concept of results is very different today compared to the past. The concept of results in the past was top line, bottom line, market share, cash flow, etc. Today result is also about sustainability. It's about impacting society. It's about having diversity. It's about taking care of people. Results mean different things today compared to the past, which was much more unidimensional. Okay, if I look at three types of eras, the three types of economies. Can you see that at the back?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So the first type of economy is the industrial economy. The second type of economy is the knowledge economy. And the third type of economy is what I call the creative economy, which is where we are today. Okay, this presentation is available with Dibyendu. Please feel free to take it. Okay, there's no IPR on it, but if you want to send me some money, you're most welcome. Okay. Okay. So now, thank you for saying that. Now, industrial economy. Let's take the parameters. What wins? Leadership style, behavior, leadership, relationships, role models, and firms. What wins is machine efficiency in industrial economy. Do you remember Charlie Chaplin and Modern Times?
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's exactly what it is. Think about it. Everybody cranking, everything being efficient to a core. That's what was the principle of the industrial economy. What is the leadership style? Command and control. Thou shalt do what I tell you. So every man was a machine. That's how we treated people. What was the behavior? Very formal. What is the leadership style? Inherited, appointed by somebody. What are the relationships? Human being to human being. And what are the role models? Firm stroke institutions. The army was a role model. Believe it or not, most studies on leadership in the early era came from the armed forces. Because armed forces commanded huge number of human beings and took them to war. So by definition, people said that the guy who has commanded troops out there is a good leader. So if you look at the early bunch of CEOs in America, a lot of them came from the armed forces. Because when the business school degree started in the 1920s, less than 11% of CEOs were graduates. 100 years ago, less than 11% of CEOs in America were graduates. So you had to import leaders from somewhere else, and that somewhere else was the armed forces. Industrial conglomerates, by the time 40s happened, 50s happened, 60s happened, that was the firm or the institution you looked up to. Let's go to the knowledge economy. What wins in the knowledge economy is information. The leadership style is connect and communicate. The behavior is informal. The leadership is voluntary. And relationships are human being to machine. And the role models were tech companies, services firms, consulting firms. all firms with generated knowledge. Now we are in what I call the creative economy. What wins is ideas today. Ideas, number one. What's the leadership style? Collaborative and co-creation. What's the type of leadership behavior? Facilitating, integrating. That's the type of leader you need in a creative economy. Relationships, machine to human being, machine to machine. And who are the role models today? Startups. If you look at it, every book and every big company says, I want to behave like a startup. Okay, everybody says, how do you behave like a startup? Speed is of great essence. Ideas are of great essence. So now the role model is actually a startup, and think where we started 100 years ago. The role model was the army and the industrial conglomerate, which was the giant system. Okay, so these are the three economies out there right now, and we are right here at the creative economy stage right now. So if you look at all books, all articles, everything is either new. Jack Ma says new retail. So everybody adds new to everything. New ISB, old ISB, add that also. Second, everything is smart. Smart city, smart office, smart home. Everything is smart. And finally, everything is digital. So these are the three buzzwords. Whichever article you open, whichever book you have, all three are there. And if a professor taught a class without these three words, then he's a dumb guy. Okay, so he's not up to date. He's not like really cool, right? Okay. So the old leader paradigm I would submit to you is like driving on a highway, you are the driver in the car. All you did was judge the distance between you and the guy in front. All you judged was judge the distance between you and behind. There were very few ups and downs. The road went up and down, etc. You never fell off the car. A career was a good career. Once you got in the car, you went on. But the new paradigm of leadership is like, imagine a guy on a surfboard. You will fall many times. You have to ride the wave. There are completely unexpected things being thrown at you. It is not as safe as the car. It's not as safe as the road. So the new paradigm of leadership is being on a surfboard. Being on a surfboard is a huge adrenaline kick, huge energy. But remember, it also comes with huge risks. So in the old paradigm, a leadership career had few pitfalls. In the new career, even if you ride 2 waves right, 3 waves right, you will fall. So one of the things all of us must get used to in a future economy and future leadership style, we will fall. We have to pick ourselves up, get onto the surfboard again. That's the new style. Do not think leadership is an exercise of continuous success. That doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. So get used to being a surfboard leader for the future. Ride the waves. Some waves will be fine. There will be still waters. But the thing will come at you again and again. If you think of disruption, the biggest disruption is the waves. There is no predictability to it. Okay? That's exactly how business life and leadership is going to be. So, having said that, so now you have to rethink your leadership style because there are no role models for being surfboard guys. Surfboard leaders are very few right now. Okay? You cannot extrapolate the current guy who's sitting in a car into the future world. So, there are very few surfboard leaders. So, you have to do it yourself. When we grew up in the last 20 years, 25 years as leaders, we looked at our chairman, like Dr. Ganguly, or my mentors like Dr. Ganguly, K.K. Dadi Seth, Gopal Krishnan, etc., and we tried to role model them. Now, if I stand here in 2019 and ask myself, next 10 years, I don't see a role model that I can follow. I have to invent myself. So now the emphasis is on you to reinvent your leadership and not to copy somebody who is either in the Economic Times or the Forbes or the business world. That is not the paradigm anymore if you want to be successful for the future. Okay, so think about it. Okay? So, I have 10 suggestions for you. These are suggestions, it's your call. Why am I saying 10 suggestions? It is not a science. I am taking a guess of the future as much as you are. Because I have started by saying there are no role models for the future. I can't learn from anybody to tell you. So I can only imagine the future and say, hey, think about this. I've thought about it like this, but it's up to you. Okay? So you can have a dialogue on this. Number one, Every job will change with technology. So you have to imbibe technology in everything you do. You have no choice. And the biggest impact of technology in today's world is on the business model. Very few people recognize that. Every industry, business models are changing. So digital and technology is merciless on a middleman who adds no value. That middleman could be the old bookseller who knew nothing about books. And hence all bookshops have died, most of them. The middleman could be a music seller who knew nothing about music. He is also dead. The middleman could be a travel agent who knew nothing about, apart from booking your ticket and telling you the price. The middleman can also be a professor. The middleman can be anybody. If that middleman does not add value, technology and digitization will murder him, not kill him, murder. His shelf life is in danger. Remember that, absolutely, okay? So, technology is going to create disruption. So you have to imbibe, your company has to imbibe, your team has to imbibe technology and digital. So whatever you do, like for example, years ago, in 2015-16, after the split of Andhra and Telangana, in May, similar time frame, 3-4 years ago, Chandrababu Naidu, who is the chief minister, said, all cabinet meetings will only be held on the tablet now, no paper. 3 years ago, he did it. Trust me, many companies don't do that even today. You know, chief ministers are doing things like this, but companies are not doing things like that. So we all talk about need to change, need to innovate, etc. But a very simple thing is, in the jobs you're doing, are you innovating with digital? And I submit to you, 95% of the companies are not. So that's your first starting point. If you want to be a future leader, digitize the way you are working with your people. Point number 2, be an all-learning leader, not an all-knowing leader. There's a big fallacy of the industrial era and the knowledge era that leaders must know all the answers. So you go into a room, you present the problem to the leader, he gives you an answer. Not true anymore. What leaders can do is to learn more than others, and hence be able to think about the situation and the problem better than others. Leaders are not answer capsules. Those days are over. In the old days, 20 years ago, 25 years ago when I started my career, we could go to our leader, he would give us an answer, we'd go to implement it. Today, leaders are just as short of an answer as people who are seeking the answer. So be an all-learning leader and not an all-knowing leader. So that's a very simple way you can do it. I would submit to you, every month, talk to 2 people outside of your industry. Every month. So if you're in the financial sector, talk to somebody else, some other sector, 2 people. And ask them how their industry is and what's happening. If there's a good idea in that industry, you can be absolutely sure it will come to your shore very quickly. Good ideas travel across industries like that today. So that's a way of learning even within your own network. And a lot of learning now has to be self-taught. Because the pace of change is so quick that there is no time to sit in a class like this. There is no time to keep poring over reports, etc. You have to learn as much as you can, by the minute, by the hour. You must use every single minute you have to learn and to equip yourself with the new world. Point number 3, move from a hierarchy to a network. Okay, the simplest example I will give you, this is not my original thought, this is something which Peter Drucker said many years ago, but it's still valid today. He said it in the knowledge economy, but with a bit of twist, it's still true. The old leader, I said, was a command and control leader. The command and control leader marshaled resources, allocated resources, and told them, thou shalt do this, 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 and they went and did that. The new type of a leader is a very different leader. Imagine the conductor of the orchestra. The conductor of the orchestra plays no instrument. He has a baton in his hand. So if I was the conductor of an orchestra, I ask the cellist to start, I ask somebody else to this thing, finish. Every one of you is going to watch the baton I have. This leader has his face to his team and his back to the audience. So this leader is a completely different leader. It's not a hierarchy leader. It's a network leader. So the role of a leader is to build the network continuously. The leader is at the center of this whole thing, and his main job is two things: to provide glue, to provide energy. That's all. Those are the two things a leader needs to do in a future world. Okay, glue, hold the team together, hold the company together, and provide energy so that your team marches on. So these are the two things that you truly need to do. That is what leadership is going to be about. Fourth, stop micromanaging, start micro-sensing. Again, this is a hierarchy habit. Most leaders want to micromanage. And what do I mean by micro-sense? Now that's my own expression. Micro-sensing is talk to a lot of people in your company, your competitors, your trade, your ecosystem. They will tell you more about your company than you will ever know, because you're willing to listen to them. So that's what I try and do. So I talk to a lot of people in my company. So my South Zone head Hussein Khan is here. I talk to him almost every 2 days. One of the businesses I run is the cement business, so he looks after South. And I ask him, hey Sher Khan, tell me what's happening. If he tells me that something is going wrong, he's not getting the right approvals, etc., then I'll call the system, whoever it is, and say, hey, why aren't you clearing this? Please move on. Okay, so leaders have to dig deep in the organization, pick up the worries and the concerns people have, and feed it to the right people and say, hey, start managing. It is not about micromanaging, but micro-sensing, because in hierarchy organizations, people will not tell beyond the next level. That's the danger. In a fast-changing world, you cannot wait for levels to respond. So the leader has to take the role to dig deep into the company and sense what's happening. Okay, so that's what a good leader needs to do. Next, stop giving answers. But I'd really encourage you to ask really good, tough questions. So the role of a leader in a future world is to ask questions so that there is no more light thrown on the problem. But based on that extra light, there is a new direction which comes through. The idea is not to give an answer and say, thou shalt do this. The idea is to say, okay, have you thought about this? Have you considered this? What are the options? Okay, what's the range of risk we are talking about? In what conditions is this going to apply? Ask those good questions. So practice to ask good questions. And trust me, when you ask great questions, you will give a fantastic new direction there. Because we don't have all the answers. Trust me, we can never have all the answers. So accepting that we don't have the answers leads us to a phenomenon called, I should be a better person with questions. Okay? So that's the paradigm shift in a future world. Number 6, don't throw meaningless data points. Instead, seek insight and wisdom. What do I mean by this? We have too much data. And I say this in every forum. 95% of the data which is there in a company is not used. I'm telling you today. 100%. 95%, I wouldn't say 95%, maybe 60% of the reports generated in a company are not used. So I have a simple check. I also run the textiles business. So I was having a review with the IT guys. I said, Shagata, how many reports do we generate in a day? He said, 200 reports ship. I said, how do you know all these 200 reports are useful? He said, I don't know. I said, what would be a good measure? He said, I don't know. I said, let's think about it. Okay, what is this report meant for? This report is meant for the sales guys. What is this report meant for? It's meant for the ecosystem. What is this report meant for? It's for the financial community. I said, let's try something simple. If a report is meant for the sales guys, there are 100 guys, and only 30 of them log into it, then it's clearly of no use. I said, let's start with a benchmark. Let's try this experiment. Only 50% of the people for whom the report is intended, if they open that file, we will continue the report. Otherwise, we'll knock it off. Okay. There's just too much information. All people do is take it, save it, keep it. That's all they do. Why do they keep it and save it? Thinking, when I want it, I will open it. The guys have no clue. In a meeting, when you are desperate, when you want, even he has forgotten it's on his laptop. That's the truth. That's the absolute truth. So you really need to think differently about how you manage this whole concept called data. Seek insight. Today we are data rich and insight poor. That's where we are. Seek insight, build wisdom in the organization, build wisdom in teams. And that wisdom shelf life will be very, very short. Wisdom shelf life will not be 20 years. Those days are over. That wisdom shelf life might be every 6 months. Take mobile phones. From 2005, in 2005, we had 80 million subscribers. And we mentioned, me and Manoj Kohli of Airtel said, we will connect the 80 to the 900 in the next decade. Everybody laughed at us. In the mobile phone business, in the era 2006 to 2010, we used to measure growth over previous month, not against previous year, not against previous quarter. We used to call it month-on-month growth. Okay, so the paradigm has to shift. Number 7, very, very important. Your current company will not be your last company, wherever you're working. My simple submission to you, be loyal to the company as long as the company is loyal to you. Judging that is difficult. I'll be the first guy to say this. Judging that is difficult. But there are signals, and we'll discuss that. Okay, you should only be loyal to a company as long as the company is loyal to you. The day you sense the company is not loyal to you, you have every right to walk out of the door. Less than 100 leaders in this country will tell you this, but I'm telling you this. I'm telling you this because that's the future. Whether we like it or not, it will happen. So it's better that we are prepared for it. And better that we understand it. Okay? So be loyal as long as your company is loyal to you. You don't owe the company anything after the company is not loyal to you. Remember this. You owe them nothing. Number 8. In a meeting, discuss and debate. Do not have death by PowerPoint. I cannot tell you the number of leaders who come unprepared for a meeting. So for a 1-hour meeting, the team will come with 100 slides. There's no chance you can even do 20 slides. No chance. So one of the things I try to force people to do is, I read all the material and come and say, let's have a discussion. Tell me, what did you mean by this? What did you mean by that? What's your measure? What are we going to do? Okay, do not go. The quantity of slides does not define a meeting. The quality of discussion defines a meeting. So you as a team leader, start a new habit. Why am I saying this? Go back to what did we say? The creative economy is about ideas. If you're not willing to discuss, you're not going to get any ideas. They'll all fall by the wayside. Number 9, go and seek learning versus expecting learning to come to you. Seek learning every day. Go out there, listen to it, seek it, practice it, whatever it is. Learning will not come to you in a classroom. Learning will not come to you in a condensed capsule. Remember, people go to exam at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, so 8 o'clock they're swatting with somebody who's read. That won't happen in a future world. You cannot do that. You have to do it yourself. You have to go and seek learning all the time. Every experience must be a learning experience for you. You have to reflect on your day far more carefully. You have to reflect on your timetable far more carefully. Every meeting you need to think and rethink. That's what I mean by learning. Number 10, simplify, do not complicate. If people come to you with a problem, don't complicate it and send them back with 10 other things. This is one of the habits I have seen in India, more so than anywhere else in the world, having worked across the world. Indian leaders tend to complicate things. They don't simplify. When a meeting starts, the leader starts asking questions which are out of syllabus. That's what happens. Stupidity. Focus on the meeting, what you've come for. Let's do this, let's do this analysis, let's do that analysis. By the time the guy is left, you've added 20 more points which he doesn't have the time for. And you haven't answered the question he's come for. So I would seriously recommend to you, ask yourself, are you simplifying? You can only simplify if you think simply and clearly. If you do not think simply and clearly, you will complicate. The day you complicate, you'll slow your organization down. The day you slow your organization down, your organization is going to lose. There is a premium on speed. And speed can only come with clear thinking leaders, not confused leaders. Okay? So clear thinking is absolutely critical to get there. So, what do you think are the performance variables of the future is what I'll put down. This is the first time I'm putting these 2 slides. I've thought deeply about it. I'll offer it to you as a suggestion. Okay? I'm sure many people will pick this off LinkedIn and have a debate, etc. That's for them to do. But I've thought deep and hard about it in terms of saying, in a fast-changing world, what are the variables which people are going to judge you by? Okay? This is the wisdom of all my career put in the next 2 slides in terms of what I see out the future. First, there is what I call a Western model. Call it an MNC model, call it whatever you want. There's a Western model. Either your results, you have good results or bad results. Next, you are aligned with the powers that be, or you are not aligned with the powers that be. The powers that be could be the board of your company, MNC. It can be the management team. It can be whatever it is. Aligned, not aligned. Good results aligned with the powers. That's rare. It's a fantastic box to be in. That box, that green box, is more a function of the culture of the company, less the individual. When the culture of the company is great, you will get very good results and great alignment. The problem is, most times you don't get alignment. Alignment is a signal of culture. Alignment is an outcome of a good culture. It doesn't start with it. So that box is rare, but it's dependent on the company. Let's go to the next one. Good results but not aligned with the powers. You're a star doing a good job despite the headwinds. That's what's happening. Let's look at the right one. Aligned with the powers but bad results. Please start delivering results, as this cannot last. And lastly, bad results not aligned with the powers. Time to exit. Some variables are in your control, some are not in your control. So let me give you examples. Nokia, when we didn't have the dual SIM, because the global customer refused to accept dual SIM, when we didn't have dual SIM, we were in that blue box. Me and my team were doing damn good in India despite all the challenges we had. We are not aligned with the global organization in terms of their view on dual SIM. But we powered on, we worked hard, we continued to do what we could do. That's what happened. Okay, we continued to do whatever we could do. But by the same token, Nokia, when Nokia refused to do Android, and we couldn't sell because we had Windows, we all went into that bad results not aligned with the powers. Because only the board and the CEO wanted to do Windows, the rest of the organization wanted to do Android. So automatically Nokia got into that box of red. So all the senior managers left because they realized that we are not aligned with the management, not worth it. I was the last of the top 25 managers to leave. So I'm giving you both examples of Nokia in which box we were in. Now, the Western model, the currency is money. Everything, and this is more because the American system is like that, and all the management books and practices and HR early practices have come from there. In an American system, in a Western system, it is, I hire you, I pay you. If you're going, I'll give you 6 months, salary, 3 months salary, please move on. I don't have place for you. So the variable of exchange, the currency is only money. You must recognize that very clearly. And it will become more and more money as the world becomes more and more turbulent. Now people have various expressions for it. People call it hire and fire, this, that, etc., etc. But the fact is, the exchange is all about money. So if you are in this kind of a model, you have to be very, very clear. The money lasts as long as the results last. After that, both don't last. So you plan your career based on this in your head. No HR manager, no leader will tell you what I'm telling you. But it's your call. The currency is money. Let's look at the Eastern model. Okay? The Eastern model, the Asian model, or the family model, or whatever you want to call it, which is the opposite of the Western and the multinational model, is about results and is about loyalty. Results and loyalty, these are the two variables. Now, you have good results, you're a professional, but not that loyal in that sense. Okay? Fine, damn good, continue. If you have good results and you're very loyal, it's a super situation to be in. You are loyal, but you have bad results, you can continue to explain because the trust in you is very high. The trust comes because of your loyalty. You're professional and not so much loyal, you have bad results, something will change. You'll be asked to report to somebody else, or you'll be moved to some other job, etc. The currency or the exchange here is job security. The exchange variable in the past was money, the Western model. but here it's job security. This model, the Asian model or the family model or the Indian model, gives people more job security. The earlier model gives people more money, but not security. This is what life is going to be. This is what I see already happening. The degree will move even more. Okay? So these are the two models. Now, depending on where you're sitting, which model you're sitting, you have to be aware of it. And then you have to play it accordingly. You have to plan your own career, your own future leadership style based on that. So, in summary, I have 3 charts to end in summary. Number 1, be human in a digital world. Managers and leaders cannot be robots. We should not even try. We just cannot be. As the world gets more and more digital, more and more automated, people crave for human, interaction. Now, on a video conferences, when I do reviews, and I ask them, okay guys, how is sales? Yeah, good. They're sitting on the 28th of the month of 30 days. They still have 20% to go. Everybody says, yeah, I will do it. Nobody tells the boss, no, right? I'll do it. We finish the review on 28th. 29th, I fly to Bangalore. I look at my South Zone head eye to eye and say, will you do it? I know from his eyes whether he'll do it or not. So there is no substitute to human interaction. So whatever you digitize in an organization, whatever you do, there's absolutely no substitute to sitting with people, engaging with people, and being a good human being and being genuine. That will have a premium in a future world. That not many people will be able to bring to the table. Okay? Because the business school degree by definition is a rational degree. I started with that. Okay? And a digitized world actually makes it more rational and less emotional. That's the challenge for leaders like ourselves. Number 2, leadership will not be a competency checklist. It will be about 2 things. Output, authenticity and trust. That's all. For years, we've had checklists. Hey, checklist, this checklist, that checklist, 20 competencies, 40 skills, etc., rating, all kinds of things. In a fast-moving world, you want people to move with you, you have to be authentic. You want people to move with you, trust. David Ogilvy said this best in his book. He said, when Demosthenes spoke, they said how well he speaks. When Aschin spoke, they said, let's march against Philip. That let's march against Philip will happen if you're authentic and people trust you. Flowery language will not get you anywhere. At the core of leadership is authenticity and trust. Trust is one word which is coming out in every single leadership survey, in every single barometer. Trust of society, trust of your people, trust of all your stakeholders. So a leader has to be authentic, number 1, and that leads to trust over time. When he's not authentic, he will keep losing trust. That's the catch. So it starts with authenticity leading to trust. Last one, be good at strategy. I run the strategy team in ABG, but I'm telling you this. Be good at strategy, but be better at execution. And be absolutely great at inspiration. That is what future leadership will be about. Why do I say that? In most industries, ladies and gentlemen, in most industries, strategies are similar. Strategies are not a million miles away. They're very, very similar in most industries. So if the strategy is the same for most people, then you need to execute that strategy better than somebody else. That execution of strategy comes either you have more resources or you have better people, one of the two. So strategy is commonplace, execution is not commonplace. Everyday great execution is a challenge even today. Is a challenge even today. Execution requires far more alignment, far more consistency, far more predictability. And that's the reason it is rare. And finally, going back to the point I made about great leadership, authenticity and trust, you have to inspire people. So be good at strategy, be great at execution, be better at execution, and be great at inspiration. That's what I believe will be what a future leader will be held accountable for. In the past, we all valued in leadership what I call strategic ability. The ability to decode a problem, the ability to think about it. In a future world, I believe leaders will be judged on strategic agility. You can think, but how quickly can you move? How quickly can you maneuver your whole organization? How can you move it very fast? That is what will be required, agility. Agility is all about getting the idea on the ground. Most leaders are good at the 50,000 feet job. Very few leaders can think concurrently at 50,000 feet and say, what does it mean at 5 feet? Okay, that is what the bridge is between strategy and execution. Your idea is one part strategy at 50,000 feet. Your execution is, what's the value of this idea at 5 feet? Once you build those two, then can you go and inspire people to say, let's march against Philip. So, that's all I have to say, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for your time. More than open for questions.
The CP starts. Yeah.
Yep, all yours.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you made a point about how to identify the company being loyal to you. Can you let us know?
Yeah, there are many ways of being the company loyal to. There are many, many signals. One, of course, is the way people react to you, specifically senior management, in meetings, number one. In the way people react to you on your email and suggestions, number two. Number three, the number of training courses you are sent for. Number four, the number of projects you are put on. Okay, number five, are they thinking about your future and having a conversation with you on what do you want to do in the next 5 years here? What type of jobs do you want? There are many signals, not one or two. Most people are blind, they don't pick those signals. Because you're hoping against hope in many cases. The signals are all there. Just take those 6 things I told you and judge for yourself. Yeah.
I have it's a little bit of a confusion actually. So you talked about the industrial economy, the manufacturing, the creative economy. And you said that now we are in a phase of a creative economy. And this is where sometimes, and you talked about how the leadership traits change in the economy. But this is where the confusion lies because when we started making steel, that was also creative at that point in time. When we made an airplane, that was also creative at that point in time. And the reason why I'm trying to tell is you talked of certain leadership traits which are for the industrial economy, which was command and control, army, and then you talked of creative economy, where ideas are the more important thing. But I think there is a mix of all that exists even today. For example, if you talk to someone at an Amazon warehouse about creative economy, there I think it's a largely command and control, which is why a lot of people from the army are employed there. To ensure that the package gets delivered in the right amount of time, in the right amount of time, etc. So I still feel that a lot of importance to ideas, which is probably leads to a lot of funding, and a lot of people are getting jobs because of the idea persisting. Slowly, after a period of time, we realize that there's too much of value being given to an idea. My mother sitting on the couch, comes up with lots of ideas, but I think the most important thing is execution. And to do that well, the part of execution well in that creative economy bucket as well, I think a large part of traits that a leader needs are still a part of the industrial economy, which is discipline, a little bit of a command and control, which is deadline, an idea which is thinking in your mind and you're working on a 30,000 feet, you can't put it down.
Got it.
So I'm a little confused because I feel, and I'll tell you why it comes from failures. I was in the army, and then I went to Google.
Yeah.
So, and then now I have my own manufacturing organization. So, my latest imprint of leadership is the creative economy, which is the Google imprint. When I tried to do that in my manufacturing organization, let's be creative, I failed. Oops. And now the organization works because we have people from the army running it in a very industrial economy kind of way. And we do have a certain set of people who do a little bit of the creative economy. But I think what I'm trying to say is that each of
I-
these exist.
I'll
So I'm
possibly
not
get
sure
some.
if you can say that we are now in a
Sure, got it.
creative economy.
Yeah, so thank you, Rishi, for saying that. Thank you for pointing that out, and I must clarify. So when we think of economies, it doesn't mean that there is handover from one to the other. It doesn't mean that the principles of the industrial economy are no longer relevant today. I'm not saying that at all. What you have to ask yourself is, in any era that you are in, what is the dominant model? So that is the dominant model. So let's go back and let's step back. Let's take a simple concept called, one of the hallmarks of the industrial economy was standardization. Standardization. So let's take that, which is the bedrock of digital. So let's take standardization. Where did standardization first start? Any idea? Ford. Started with Ford Model T. Okay? Why did Ford start with Ford Model T standardization? Where did he learn it from? If you read your textbooks. He went to a meat packer on a Saturday and saw that the meat packer had automized. So he said, why can't I take the same and put it in my car manufacturing? Number one. Number two, all this is linked, the stories. Why did Ford say, you can have a car in any color as long as it is black? Why?
Faster to
Wanted to eliminate choice.
black color becomes.
Wanted to change the era that humans should not think of choices.
That's the answer. The black color was the fastest setting dye those days. Other colors took more time. So his whole concept was, how do I standardize with a clear output to say, I put out as many cars as possible. That was the reason he did it. Okay? So now, let's take the same concept to the next level. What do McDonald's and Burger King do? Exactly that. When somebody accused Ray Kroc and said, you sell 1 billion burgers, he said, you're right, but we sell it one at a time. So today, if you look at digital, what is digital? Standardize every single process. So if you take the concept of standardization, it is as relevant in a digital world, but with a different set of variables. That's what it is. So it's not that everything of the industrial world gets knocked out when you are in the creative world. But the dominant business model is that the principles, if they are good, will continue and carry. For example, let's take leadership. The principles of authenticity and trust we are talking today, they have always been valid, whether in the army or anywhere. Let's look at one more. Today, everybody says a company needs purpose. A company needs to think about society. If you go back to the great entrepreneurs, why did the great entrepreneurs start a school? Because they wanted people for their company. Why did the great entrepreneurs start a library? Because they wanted people in that city to be educated. So today we talk of social purpose and commitment to society, but the great entrepreneurs already did it. We lost it in the middle. And today with the inequality, people are saying, hey, this is not right. What are you doing for society? You're taking a lot from society, you're not giving back. The entrepreneurs understood this 100 years ago. Okay, so it is not, life is never in a vacuum. It evolves. And that's what I said, you take the good of the past, junk the things which don't work. If you ask me, command and control, absolutely right. If you are in a crisis, you cannot be a facilitating manager. Correct? If you are in a crisis, you say, boys, come on, let's get going, no more. You cannot say, okay, now let's have a class participation, let's come on, let's continue. Doesn't work. I've been in a crisis many times. And I've said, I listen to you, but because I listen to you does not mean you have a vote. The vote is mine. I'm in a crisis, I will decide. So the context is as important to consider. When you take theory out of context, it is theory. When you blend theory with context, that is when you get leaders to rise above the normal. That is what leadership is about. Okay? So thank you for raising that. Good take.
What advice you would give to first-time entrepreneurs with no family in business?
First-time entrepreneurs, I would say 2-3 things, which I've advised a number of entrepreneurs over my career. Number one, if you have a partner, please be extremely clear how you will resolve differences. That's the number one problem with entrepreneurship. My wife is an entrepreneur. She and her partners, they had a problem with one of the partners, and that partner exited. Okay? The biggest challenge is you start because you're friends, but then the direction starts separating you. Everybody has a strong set of you. Okay? So you must be extremely clear how you will resolve differences. Agree right in the beginning. If we have differences, if your two partners we disagree, we'll go to this person or that person, we'll resolve it like this. But we will not quit the company. Number one. Second, be very clear about your business model. Many entrepreneurs start with an idea, but finally, if you have to get scale or money or whatever it is, your business model must work for you. Third, I would say, whatever happens, okay, cash is king. Try and get to cash as quickly as possible. Okay, cash is king, and as one of my CFOs in Hindustan Lever Beverages used to say, the rest is hope. So cash is king. So please ensure that you keep a track on that. Okay, that's what I would say. And if you're an early entrepreneur, the last advice I'd give you is, you must be clear that you retain control of your company. Okay? At what stage will you give up control of your company is also something you must think. At what level? Most entrepreneurs start with 80% control, 90% control, 100% control. As it goes down, as you become 30% control, you have to realize that there are gives and takes. It cannot be the same situation when you're 100. Okay, so everybody is in a hurry to get funding, but remember, the moment you ask for funding, you also have to give away some rights. So these are the things that I have found entrepreneurs are not particularly smart about, these four things. Resolution of differences, business model, cash, and control. Okay? One second. Here.
Sir, I had a follow-up question to Archana's about lack of trust. Suppose as a company you feel you do not trust your people by the 6 points that you mentioned. What should you do? Suppose I realize I don't trust some people, I'm not sending them on some projects, etc.
Have an honest conversation. Have an honest conversation. Give them proof points. The trouble with us as leaders is that, what's your name, sir? Umesh. Okay. So I'll tell Umesh, you know what? You're untrustworthy. You're not disciplined. You don't finish work on time. And I've always found, if you want to give tough feedback to people, have very clear examples for them. Umesh, you're indisciplined because in the last 3 months, you come late for 60% of the meetings. I do not trust you to finish work because there's not one project you've met on time. You've not delivered the papers to me. Be very specific. And trust me, these guys will reward you with a lot more trust when you're honest with them. The trouble with a lot of organizations is, we indulge in puffery. Oh, Umesh, you're a great guy. Don't worry. Things are going well. Future is bright. Nothing will happen. But when we sit in a talent council, then we say, Umesh, bottom box. That's the problem. You're not telling him the truth. It's quite likely that in that context and that culture, Umesh is not a good guy. If you actually tell him, hey, move on, you might be fine, he might flourish somewhere else. Many of the management trainees of Hindustan Lever, I won't name, did exceedingly well outside of Hindustan Lever. Within 1 or 2 years, they were asked to leave. They did exceedingly well outside. They all became CEOs. So it is not that your culture is the only culture. Your judgment, your culture, your context defines him one way. If you tell him, look, this is not working out for both of us, it's better to leave. When I was in Levers, I had a few senior brand managers and marketing managers. I sat down honestly with them and say, hey, you know what? It's not working out, guys. I think it's best that you look out. Take your time. Okay? You're not a case where you need to leave. It's best that you look out. Okay? For this is reason. At that point of time, the guy is hurt. But each of those guys, they're CEOs today. Whenever they meet me, they say, Shiv, the best thing you did was have that conversation. If you're authentic, people will trust you. Because what you say to him and what you do in talent council meetings are the same. The worst thing is, the question she asked, for Umesh to be living in a fool's world, thinking he's fine. It is our job as leaders to tell him that he's not fine.
But a lot of times you're also stuck because you feel that, okay, he's doing a decent job. If he had to leave, I can't really find a decent enough replacement, or will I be worse off, if he leaves?
Good question. Very good question. Thank you for asking that. The thing you need to be clear is that no organization can be an organization of stars. Remember this. Okay. So think of this concept as leaders. If this were the company, the room, the ceiling is the star. The floor is the weighted average of the capability in your organization. Okay, these are the two. This is the ceiling, star capability, average capability in the company. The mistakes all companies make is that they raise this. They put all the things here. Now the moment you do this, the gap widens. When the gap widens, jealousy sets in a lot more. Backbiting starts. People don't cooperate. The trick of a good leader and a good organization is to move both up with the same change. That is the trick. And that is not easy. So in an organization, you have the stars, but you have weight carriers. So let me explain this to you so that I see 2-3 related questions. I know, so once I explain this, you'll realize it. Okay. So if you take, and we did this, a few years ago, around 2008, during the financial crisis, we are debating such questions in Nokia in terms of saying, who are the leaders, who are the stars, what do they do, etc. So with this consulting firm, I won't name, we did a simple exercise. We said, let's go and look at companies. India has 5,400 listed companies. We said, let's take 100 companies. 100 companies, each company has 15 board members. Okay, let's look at their profile and see where they are. This is what we came to. Okay, so if you plot them, those 1,500 people, we found that they were right on the edge, 5% of people. Those 5% of people, there was no glass ceiling for them. They would have made it to the top in any industry. In any industry. They had energy, they had edge, they had good people connect, good people skills, everything. Okay? Those guys, and I'll explain when they made up their mind. So they were there, 5%. Next we found there were a bunch of 10%. If you looked at the profile, these are what are politicians. They go with the wind. They're very smart. Okay, every company says we don't need politicians. But because of the insecurities of the boss or the insecurity of the system, these guys thrive. They're good, but they know which way the wind is blowing. And they align themselves to that. Okay? Like it or not, they're still successful. There's a third bunch of people, which is 10%, which is good, but they have the hand of somebody on their shoulder. It is somebody saying, I'm the CEO, Umesh is the middle manager. Umesh, you're good, you have a good future here. I'm not pampering him, I'm not favoring him, but I'm looking out for him. Okay? So they have a hand, which is what I call the Godfather mentality. Okay, you're good, somebody has a shoulder. Somebody has a hand on your shoulder to say, you will do well. Then we have the 50% of the people who we call the weight carriers. These are the guys who carry the weight of the organization. And in my career, every time I had a problem in a process or anything, I go to these guys. These are the guys who know the whole process backwards, forwards, inside, sideways. If you have a problem to decode in the company, these are the guys to go to. These are the guys who are most committed to a company. They are not looking for medals. They just want recognition. They want you to acknowledge that they're very good. And many companies don't do that. A company runs on the back of 50%, not the 5%. The 5% takes you or propels you, if done in the right direction, forward. Then the last 25% is a very funny box. You wonder why they are there. So now, you have to ask yourself in your team, now that I've given you. Now the choice to be in the top 5%, ladies and gentlemen, is a choice which people make when they're 30 years old. It's not a choice you make when you become CEO. It's a choice you make when you're 30 to say, I will set this path. I will be damn good. It's a personal choice they make. Because they've committed, they sacrifice a lot. And because they're so committed and so driven to be the best at whatever they do, opportunities come their way. So many times when we look at somebody at 45 who becomes a CEO, we say he's lucky. But what you have not recognized is that he's committed himself to this journey 15 years ago. So recognize those guys. Now the way to deal with them, which comes back to your question, If you have stars in your team, give them tailwind, don't give them headwind. Give them tailwind. The role of a leader is to encourage them to say, fly. Don't worry, you will fall. Don't worry, you will challenge, but I'm behind you. Go ahead. That's all they need. They will possibly out-achieve you as a leader in their career. That's fine. Give them tailwind. Politicians, can you do anything? No, you cannot. They're very smart. They're very smart. That's why they're there. Okay, so, last point. What do you think when MBAs come into a company, which group is most attractive to them?
5 and 10.
Rubbish.
10.
10, the first 10. You know, and I've debated this with a lot of the MBAs. You know why 5? It's a boring journey. I finished MBA, I'm a cat, and you're asking me to work 20 hours a day? You want me to be good for what? That 10% is chalaki, mental agility. Hey, that's what I want to do. That fellow outmaneuvered, he did this. Why can't I be that? So most MBAs, that's a fallacy. The 5% is a sure, safe route. The 10% is a risky route. But most people are attracted by the risky route because it's about mental agility. Yeah.
In this new economy with the company that you're currently in, which is a huge conglomerate organization, where things have been set in stone for a long period of time, how is it that you are thinking about breaking this large organization into creative, small organizations able to derive the kinds of outcomes and future of the economy?
Yeah. So there are some fundamental things you need to do. For example, going back to even Rishi's question. The customer will be the customer and his demands will be the same, whether it was the industrial era or the creative era. The customer is the same. The product and the service you're offering might be different. So we are by and large a product company. I believe we need to offer much more services in conjunction with products. Number one. We are largely an industrial conglomerate with a few consumer-facing businesses. I think we'll need to digitize a lot more. A lot more. Third, when we look at the ratio of businesses, we are 50% India, 50% outside India. That's a good ratio. Fourth, if we look at the ratio between manufacturing and services, we have much more manufacturing. So we need to look at much more services. So that's the direction and that's the broad sweep of where we should be headed.
And people in terms of, people who have been grounded in the organization, because I think quite a few people in a company like Birla actually stay on for a very long time. So also the mindset shifts in this kind of an organization, the agility that you need in this kind of a system.
Yeah.
How do you cope with that?
Good question. And one of the things I'm recognizing across all companies, the guys who are driving the biggest change in managers is actually customers. It's customers who are driving the change. No internal program can achieve the kind of fire in the seat of the pants what a customer can do. Let me give you an example. We went to one of our customers 10 days ago to do co-creation. Orient Craft in Delhi, they are a garmenter, okay, the textiles business I run. There's a girl called Shilpa Dingra, who is Mr. Dingra's daughter, who runs innovation. And so we went there, we're having a meeting. So one of the guys said, we have a 45 to 60-day lead time to deliver what you want. She said, Mr. Fashion cycles are every month now. Every month. I need a new design every month. If you are telling me you'll do me a design in 60 days, you have only 6 chances with me. You don't have 12 chances. So please cut your plan by half right now. Okay. Then he said, I can't do this, I can't do that, etc. She said, Mister, you can't sell tea in a coffee drinking market. If this is what my customer wants, Ann Taylor or Gap or Marks and Spas, you better align or I'll find somebody else. So it's customers who are driving a lot more change in companies and behavior of companies than internal programs or HR departments. It's customers who are forcing us to change. Remember that. So my simple thing to you would be, if you're finding a recalcitrant person, put him in front of a customer. Take him along. That's the coldest shower he'll ever get in his life.
You mentioned how in the new era sustainability and all these other factors become so important. So how do you deal with these sorts of businesses where fast fashion every month just destroys?
Excellent. Great question. It's exactly in textiles. I was in Turkey 2 weeks ago. So as Soktas, the company we bought for India, asked them what's happening. They said, Shiv, when we discuss with all the brands, 90% of the brands ask us, do you have sustainability program? Do you have certification? Do you have traceability end to end? Tell us that. If you don't have it, then give it to me at 90% discount of your price. Otherwise, I'm not buying. The textile industry is ruthless on sustainability. Ruthless right now. People are paying a premium like Patagonia, etc. So we have in our viscose business, we can actually track where the fiber came from. Okay? Now go back. It was also there in the industrial era. Where was it there? It was there in diamonds. Remember? Blood diamond, etc. It was there in coffee, blood coffee. It was there for the last 20 years. But now it's becoming more and more prevalent. But more important, now consumers are willing to pay a premium for it. If you are not sustainable, you cannot be a vendor.
Are you saying these garments will not destroy the climate if you change?
Absolutely right. That's exactly what the brands are pushing us for. Exactly. Okay, so the brands are pushing us desperately.
For the material to
everything. Today, 90% of the produce of most of the big brands, of the Western brands, is sustainable fabric. And more will happen. Yes, please.
You spoke about being loyal to the company and the company being loyal to you, and you also said that we are not married to the company for life. One of the questions that keeps coming in my head, especially when I'm switching a career, is like, what should I be careful about when I'm moving to a new role or moving to a new company? What should be the couple of indicators from your side that a person should take care of?
Okay, thank you for that. Always comes. In 1960s, the average age of a company was 60 years. 60. 2019, what do you think is the average age of a company? Okay, so let's take the first one. How long do you think your career is? 40 years. Maybe 30 years of working, another 10, 20 years of directorship, 40, 50 years. Now, your career is 40, 50 years. The career of a company is 15 years. What does that tell you first? You have to think beyond the company, full stop. Nothing more. I can't, those are the two numbers. But the next question which you asked, here are some principles. You must always go to what I call a high growth but scale industry. That's when you learn the most. I was absolutely lucky that I went to a high growth scale industry called telecom. There is a different adrenaline when you go. If you go to a high growth niche industry, it's not the same fun. Okay, so ride the waves of future capability. Okay, that's what I would say. Number two, very, very important point, which 99% of people get wrong. When you switch jobs, do not switch jobs when you are unhappy. When you are unhappy, every opportunity looks damn good because you're cursing the current company. But when you are extremely happy and you get a good offer, that's the right offer to pick. So switch when you are happy, never when you are unhappy. When you are unhappy, every option looks good, but most of them will be a failure. But when you are happy and content and you're doing a great job, and then you get a damn good offer, then you're choosing a very good offer against a very good situation. Okay, these are the two things I'll tell you. So that's the reason, because the lifespan of a career is more than the lifespan of a company, you have to be prepared. Okay? None of us. Nokia was the fastest growth company in the history of the world. It went from $3 billion in 1991 to $50 billion in 2009-10. Fastest growing in the market. Not one of us who worked for Nokia ever thought that Nokia would be sold. Not one of us. But it happened, right? What do you do? Not in your control. But then you have to move on. Okay? So prepare for the worst. Okay? But continue to do your best. Yes, please.
Plan versus actual. So every day, we plan that we'll be in business or not. So like 3 months, 6 months, we'll do this, that. But every day, we act on something. And at the end of 3 months, if we're lucky, we actually do plan versus actual, and then we say, okay, this is the plan that's happened. And I was lucky enough to kind of be a part of the implementation that happened at Rethink for 5 years. They're also used to see that we will have monthly distribution planning, and then when we come to daily dispatch will happen of this one, and when we actually plan versus actual, way off. So what do you have to say about how can we every day and push ourselves to reach towards that plan that we have?
Two points there. Number one, a winning mindset is not about winning all the time. I was just telling my people today on the flight. It's not about winning all the time. It's also recognizing that you're losing and learning from that loss and accepting that. Number one, that's very, very important. There's nothing in life called winning all the time. Nothing. So don't even start there. Okay, is my submission. If you start by saying I'll lose some, I'll win some, you're okay. Second is, a lot of the commitment to targets and delivery, etc., is a function of the leader and the culture in a company. So let me put this. I'm sure it's happening in your organization. So, the question you need to ask is, what's the difference in the two words? They're the same word, but what's the difference? Huh? Okay. Accountability as a red word means you bloody well do it or else. It's a threat. When accountability is a threat, things don't work. On the other hand, when accountability is a green word, saying try it. Let's go for it. If it works, good. If it doesn't work, doesn't matter. Try and make the concept of accountability a green word, not a red word. In most organizations, accountability is a red word, especially in sales. Okay? So think of accountability as empowering. Let me give an example of accountability. I was the regional manager for Hindustan Lever, 1994-95 story. Anand Bhatia was the director. So one day, we are having a very bad, quarter. So he called me in March, 18th of March or 20th of March. He said, Shiv, where are you? I said, I'm in my office. The receptionist had put the phone call through. He said, do you have a piece of paper in front of you? I said, yeah. He said, write down. He said, Shiv, Delhi branch says they'll do so much. Bombay branch says they'll do so much. Calcutta branch says they'll do so much. You are 40% of the business. What is your final number? Tell me. So I said, Anand, I think I'll do whatever, 11,000 tons or 12,000 tons. He said, are you absolutely sure? I said, yes, Anand, I think I should get there. He said, Shiv, tell me the number so that I tell the chairman. I don't want to cut my nose in front of the chairman. That's all. You tell me whatever number, that's the number I'm going to come in. So I said, Anand, 11, done. Come what may. As soon as I put the phone call down, I went to my area sales manager and said, come what may, guys. We have promised Anand, we can't let him down. 11 is 11 now. That's it. We did far more. But the reason was, Anand said, hey Shiv, give me a number you're comfortable with, and I want you to stick to it. If on the other hand he'd said, why the hell aren't you doing this, blah, blah, etc., then he's talking of accountability as a red word to me. Okay? And I've seen this in meeting after meeting till I've become CEO. Okay? In the same company, Hindustan Lever, our chairman, we had a bad quarter or whatever it was, the year is 2001-2. So we used to have video conferences with the zones. I was one of the business heads or category heads. So the first team, Chennai team, they said, we can't do this target, they got beaten up. The moment they got beaten up, they called all the other zones and said, yeah, this guy's in a beating mood today. The other three guys, we will definitely do the target. Why are you asking? And what did the buggers do? 80% of the target. That's natural human tendency. Because very rarely will people argue with you on a point, which is what I said, being aligned with the powers. Very rarely will they do that. They'll say, why risk it? End of the month he will realize himself. So here's the thing, as a leader, you have to be a leader that micro-sensing. Bad news must travel to you quickly. Bad news does not get better with time, it stinks with time. Bad news is not like pickle. So please ensure that you have a sensing mechanism where you're picking up bad news consistently. Okay?
Waiting for a question.
Go ahead.
In terms of leadership, so since you have moved across organizations, so two leg of the question is there. One is manage your boss and manage your reportees. In terms of managing your reportees, when you have moved across organizations, possibly you encounter stars in the system and then you realize, but yes, they have been stars over the years, but now the level of the game has changed. So earlier the game was Formula 3 and now you are pushing it up to Formula 1. So the same stars, while their belief is they are still the stars, and you want to see that they actually succeed at stars, but at the same time you have to put, as a leader, put the message across that the game has now become Formula 1. So how you can take your such stars along and get them to actually become stars in Formula 1? That is one part of the question. And the other part of the question, in terms of your boss too, so suppose you move into a company Y from company X, the boss is also, again, maybe like the organization, victims of their own success. So how do you ensure that they keep on reinvesting in themselves, just the way you mentioned, keep on learning, because the world is evolving at such a fast pace. So how do you balance both sides of the spectrum?
Fair. No, both very good questions. So let me give you personal examples. That's the best way to explain rather than theory. Let's take Nokia. When I joined Nokia in 2005, the global CEO told me, Shiv, I only want you to focus on India. China and India are our biggest markets. Forget Bangladesh, forget Sri Lanka, not interested. We want India to be big. We want you to be dominant. I said, okay. So we asked ourselves, what's our ambition? We are a $500, $600 million company. We said in the next 3-4 years, we'll become a $4 billion company. $4 billion. Most people didn't believe us. Okay? We said, okay. Then we asked ourselves, what kind of people do we need to be a $4 billion company? And here's where we did a great thing. We went and hired CEOs of $1 billion companies. We didn't hire people with $300 million experience. We hired people who had run $1 billion companies. And we told them, please come, report to Shiv, but the dream is $4 billion. Imagine a CEO leaving his current job and coming and saying, I'll work for some other CEO, but we'll grow to $4 billion. So you have to ask yourself, what's the potential of your company and what kind of people do you need to staff it with? Would we have reached $4 billion by appointing guys who had run $100 million businesses? No. We became $4 billion in 2009. We are India's largest MNC. We made that in 4 years' time. We got there because the scope and size of the thinking of the leaders was different. So that's what you need to do. So if you're, whatever department you're running, what's the ambition you have for your team? What kind of people do you need there? Okay, get that right. Okay, number one. Number two, in any organization, whether it's your boss, whether it's the founder or anybody, the principle which works always, I have found, guys, is do what is right for the company. That is a sure shot method of being recognized in a company. The surest shot of not being recognized and hated in a company is doing what is right for yourself. And many people fall into the trap. They want that quick success, etc., so they're glorifying themselves. If you consistently work for what is right for the company, then you will always do well. Okay, only bad luck can stop you. Okay, and bad luck happens. Like Nokia was bad luck, tough luck, no worries. Do what is right for the company. In the company's success is your success. If you recognize that, you'll do fine. If you think that you are bigger than the company, it doesn't work. And many CEOs in India have failed because they've thought they were bigger than the company. I'm telling you, as I stand here with all humility, I'm a product of Hindustan Lever, Nokia, and PepsiCo. Hindustan Lever invested in me when I was a manager. Going back to this thing, I was the most trained manager. 2 courses every year almost. I was the most trained manager for Hindustan Lever. They had a dream for me before I had a dream for myself. Okay, so in the company's success is your success. Never forget that. Yes, please.
So as a leader, last 30 years, what is the highest leadership moment for you?
There are lots.
So what is the out of all the moments you consider that this is the moment, which I enjoyed most? And the contrary to that question is, what is the biggest failure you consider of your overall 30 years of career?
Yeah, both a valid question. When you go through a leadership journey, that's what I told you, you're more on the surfboard. There are lots of, if you've been a CEO, I've been one for 17 years, you'll have lots of ups and downs. The thing is to recognize that don't get depressed when you're down. There's always a better day ahead. A lot of people tend to get depressed when things go wrong. And equally, they tend to think that nothing can stop them when they're on their high. Both are wrong. Don't get arrogant when you're successful, and don't get depressed when you fail. Okay, Nokia used to have an expression. We used to have a fantastic year. We did 6 million phone sale in 2008 June, and our CEO Olipeka was on the chairman of the jury of Economic Times Award. So I went to drop him off the airport. He said, Shiv, 6 million, fantastic. No other country has done it. Celebrate for a minute and continue with July. Good advice. Very good advice. Don't get carried away. We get carried away, and when we get carried away, and these are the signals you'll watch, people will talk about what they did in the past. Habit. Boss, 3 years ago, my team codified, cracked this, etc. Who's interested 3 years ago? Your shareholders are interested in tomorrow. You can't live in the past. So to me, one of the things I consider, something which is a pride moment for me is, from the time I've been leading teams, which is 1993, from the time I've been leading teams, today at least 70, 80 of the people I have led are either CXOs or CEOs. That to me is a great thing. Because I've been able to shape their thinking to be where they are. Now on the downside, okay, should I have done more to stand up and argue against our direction in Nokia? Don't know. Because we are clearly not aligned with the direction. We wanted Android, somebody else went with Windows, the board. Okay, we tried our best. It didn't happen. It was a collective failure, and I was a part of it. I can say I didn't have the decision rights, but maybe I had more influence rights, because we were the largest country for Nokia by volume, value, and profit. So if we sneezed, Nokia got a cold. So we knew that. But could I have done more? I don't know. I've thought about this many, many times. So what could I have done differently?
Could you just go on and sat there?
That's okay. These things, so there are ups and there are downs, but that's what life is about. Okay?
I love the idea about micro-sensing. I wanted some real advice on micromanagement because so most entrepreneurs, they go through a curve. They're micromanagers, then business school teaches them to become macro managers, then they fail, then they realize it's best to again be a micromanager. So currently I'm trying a thing like micromanaging, but with alignment. Trying to give the illusion of control. What is your advice?
So, thank you for that honesty. So, I was just about to say it, and you took the words out of my mouth. See, if you are a micromanager, tell people you are a micromanager. Don't tell them anything else. They'll get confused. Because, see, micromanagement, decision rights, etc., you defined it, say that. Say, boss, you think you tell me, but I'm taking the call. Then you have to take both the good and the bad. If the strategy fails, if the execution fails, then it's you. Don't blame them after that. So there is nothing wrong in being a micromanager, if that's your style. But be very clear that you communicate that you're a micromanager. Don't be a micromanager and tell them, what, I'm a delegator. Take your decision. That doesn't work. That's when people say you're not authentic. And when you're not authentic, people won't trust you. On the other hand, if you say, I'm a micromanager, I'm going to micromanage you because I'm bothered about the results, it is my money, cannot afford it, people will listen to you, that's fine. Stay true to what you are. Don't tell them something that you are not. Huh? It doesn't matter wherever.
Actually, it depends on the context, right? So at times you have to be micromanaged, at times you have to be...
That's a very good point. In a crisis, you will micromanage. But you cannot be in a situation where 3 days you tell them, delegated, do what you want. Something goes wrong, then you start micromanaging. Okay, you have to be very clear about what decision rights are, who will do what, and what is accountability. Will they deliver so much, not, etc. And then you have to accept what's the bandwidth when you start micromanaging. Okay, if the guy is off by 5-10%, maybe you won't micromanage. If he's off by 50%, you will. Do you get it?
A lot of great tips about managing people. One key thing I want to understand is that how do you build your team? How do you hire the team? As you mentioned, you try to hire CEOs of
Good question.
companies. How do you sell the dream apart from doing?
Okay. And now there are many people who've written many books, etc. When I write my book, I'll write about this. Here's the thing, what I look for when I hire people. Number one, I look for a winning mindset, a guy who wins. I was just telling my team on the flight that here's a famous story. Australia, after playing a tough tour of England, went to Bangladesh to play one test match. End of day one, Bangladesh was 304 for 3. End of day 2, Bangladesh was 370 all out. Australia was 142 for 7. There was a press conference. The captain of Bangladesh was asked, what do you think about how the test match is poised? He said, we've scored 370, damn good against Australia, we are safe. Adam Gilchrist, the vice captain, was at the press meet. They asked Gilchrist, how do you see the test match? So Gilchrist said, at 142 for 7, we are in a hole. We have to figure out how to win from here. Who do you think won the test match? Australia. So irrespective of the situation you're in, especially in a surfboard environment, I want people who have a winning mindset. Many people in today's world, especially MBAs, are whiners. The more you think, the more you whine. That's the trouble. You cannot afford whiners. Time is too short. I look for a winning mindset, number one. Number two, I look whether the guy, based on his profile, etc., is a team player. Okay? Is he an individual star or a team player? That's the second one I look for. And the third question I ask him, which to me is a very important question, I tell him, hey Umesh, talk to me about a failure of yours. I've found that people who are honest to discuss their failures, have a lot of humility, will adapt and do well. I've heard guys saying, my biggest failure, here's a middle manager, 15 years experience. My biggest failure, I didn't get into the cricket team in school. Thank you. If that is your scope of failure, there's something wrong. Okay, but a guy who says, like there was this person who I interviewed from L'Oreal once into Nokia, and this girl said, you know what? I thought Aishwarya Rai will solve all my problems as a brand. Biggest failure I made. Didn't solve it. Then I had to go back to the drawing board and do a lot more work so that we got growth going. Now that for a 10-year experienced girl is a fantastic thing to say. It shows character. It shows that I'm willing to take it on my chin, that I've failed, but I'll set it right. So people who accept their failure and take it on their chin will invariably multiply results for you. So those are the three things that I look for. Yes, please.
So across all these topics, there was one common trend which was emerging is the people connect for the leaders. All the leaders know it. I don't think anyone is there who is not aware of it. What prevents people from developing this?
That's the sad part. There is what I think some consultants and books have been there. It is what is called the knowing-doing gap. You know what is the right thing to do, but very few people do it. So let me give you the lies that most leaders say when you read Economic Times. Number one, we are a people-focused company. Every CEO says this. Every CEO says the following. We are a people-focused company. That CEO does not know more than his direct reports. Most CEOs, I guarantee you that. Number one. Number two, we are an innovative company. Talking about innovation does not make you innovative. And number three, which is the final lie, everybody says it. We plan to double turnover in 4 years. Three things everybody says. So the thing with leadership, it's a great question you have. You cannot be a great leader if you're not self-aware. You must have high degree of self-awareness. You don't need other people to tell you. You know when you are angry, when you are smart, when you are contributing, when you are not contributing. And the only way to check your self-awareness all the time is to get as much feedback about yourself as possible. So for example, after almost every meeting, I ask the participants either on WhatsApp or face-to-face, if I'm there with them in the corridor or lunchroom, etc., give me feedback about the meeting. Why do I do that? I do that to sense, I wanted to say this, are they understanding this or this? So you sharpen yourself as you continuously seek feedback. You will become better and better self-aware if you seek feedback. And many leaders, the moment they hit the C-suite, as CXO, they have nose in their air and they don't believe they need to interact with anybody. Your strength as a leader in a future world, leadership is not a title. Leadership is given to you by the people. A title is given to you by the company, CEO or vice president, etc. But people will say he is a leader. And there are leaders at every level because they display that self-awareness and authenticity.
When you're at the top, how often do you get authentic feedback? And if you ask that often, do they get a little insecure?
Very, very good question again. When you're at the top, how often do you get authentic feedback? Here's the catch. If these are 4 people, I'm asking feedback. Over a period of time, I know who's telling me the truth and who's telling me things I want to hear. You can figure that out. You can easily figure that out. Who is flattering you and who's telling you as it is. And I always value the guys who tell me as it is. Because they are my litmus test. So you have to develop a range of people who will tell you the truth. Okay, so that's in your hands. Yes, please.
I think we talked about as a leader adapting to the situation, either the Western model or the Eastern model that we talked about. But I also want to hear a little bit about, how do you do your, as a leader, influence upwards in the sense, into your boards and stuff like that. What are the kind of challenges you have there? And there we are talking to not juniors, but probably.
Sure.
You have to do that a lot as a leader.
Absolutely right. So when you go up, you're trying to sell ideas, right? So you're as thorough as possible with the idea you have, etc. And it's quite likely the boss might say, you know what, at this point of time, don't want to do it. At this point of time, good to do it. Let's give an example. 1999, Unilever, we were looking at, in the hair care category, an acquisition in Europe. So I won't name it. We were looking at acquisition. So we made a fantastic analysis, everything. And when it goes to the special committee is the 2 chairmen, the CFO, you have to send maximum 1 or 2 page note. The meeting was at 10 o'clock for 1 hour in Unilever House in London. So I took the overnight flight from Bombay, landed there at 6 o'clock, washed in the British Airways lounge, went to the office by 9 o'clock. We went there, and Fitzgerald, who was our chairman then, he looked at it, 3 of us, me, John Morley, and somebody else. He said, fantastic proposal. So our spirits soared. He said, fantastic proposal, very well done, couldn't agree more with you. This is a great fit for your category. He said, but I must tell you that at this point of time, we cannot do it. We cannot do it because we've just acquired Best Foods for $8 billion, and Tony Bergman's other chairman feels that this is not the time to invest in this category. So gentlemen, great proposal. The answer is no. Please have your tea, coffee, you can leave. A meeting which was there for 1 hour finished in 10 minutes. But what he said was correct. We had slogged for it for 3-4 months, but you couldn't argue with this logic. Okay, so you have to judge. There is no easy answer. So when I go to my current boss, my boss says, Chefs, 500 crores, forget it. Let's not bother about this kind of a business. Let's discuss businesses which are multiple. Now his scale, because we're a $50 billion company, his scale in thinking is very different. If I was running a $2 billion company and I went with a plan which was 500 crores some business, people would be excited. But for a $50 billion company, that's okay. Let's think $1 billion. That's the hurdle rate. Okay? Harish Manwani, who's your chairman, was my boss and leave us. If I went to Harish and say, what's your gross margin? 50%. No, talk to me, 60% and more, not 50. Now, one of the things which a good leader is always good at is, every leader must have a degree of unreasonableness. When you are unreasonable, then you push people to their potential. But you can only be unreasonable if you have trust. You cannot be unreasonable if you don't have trust. When you are unreasonable, people will go out of the room and say, which is very good for you, which might not be your original intent, they say, he must be having something in his mind, so let's go do it. Let's go for it. Okay, so it's a complete context. There's no easy answer that this is the way to manage the top. Yes, please.
Shiv, in your 17 years of CEO journey and in several board meetings, is diversity ever a discussed topic in
Yes.
board meetings? And if it is discussed, we have been seeing it's discussed more, but execution kind of is still a challenge on the ground when the numbers come out. What do you think in your...
Not true. I can tell you. Great example, PepsiCo. The girl who actually did it was a lady called Pavitra Singh, which I believe she'll be one of the stars of HR in a future world. We started on a diversity agenda. This is the whole story. When we started, we had X number of women, and we are not getting enough women. So we said for every job, there must be 2 women. All hiring after that, 70% of hiring was women. 70%. Number one. Number 2, PepsiCo had 11 pay bands. In 3, women earned more than men. In 3, men earned more than women. In 4, there was equal in the period I was there. And the difference was not more than plus minus 5%. Number 3, in the 3 years that I was there, specifically in the 4 years I was there, was specifically 16, 17 when we did all the appraisals. Okay, at the end of the appraisal I said, show me women versus men. Women had better ratings than men, both years. Okay, and got more promotions. So much so that over lunch, some of the men would say, Shiv, do I have a future in this company? So diversity is a thing. You need the HR team to do it. You need the CEO to be committed. You need the senior managers to do it. It didn't work in Unilever when we tried it. So much so that business heads would ask each other, how many skirts do you have? It had gone to that kind of a discussion. Okay, so when you mandate a number for the sake of a number, it's not there. A lot of people talk about diversity and numbers, etc. But very few people understand. That's what I mean by knowing your stuff. So let me give you 2 points. What do you think is the number one thing which turns off women in an office or in a company? Number one thing. If you have micro sense, you will understand it. If you have creeps, you know, the number one thing which turns off women is language. Diversity starts with language, respectful language. Most women are extremely unhappy with the 4-letter words, the curses men use in a meeting, etc. And men get away with it saying this is sales language, this is like the language. What women want is respectful language. I've been absolutely brutal on any language which is less than respectful in a team meeting. Brutal. That's the first thing. So diversity is not about hiring and this and that. It's about a number of small things. You know, and many people don't pay attention to the small ones. Okay, when they're traveling, let me give you a great example of a company. Once I was traveling from Bombay to Bangalore, and along with me was Kirti Reddy, who's a friend, ex-Facebook CEO in India. We landed at 6:30, and we were going out, and there was a huge security guard to pick her up. I said, Kay, I'm very impressed, you have a security guard. She said, no, Shiv, for all Facebook female employees, if we land beyond 6 o'clock, there's a security guard to pick us up. Huge peace of mind to their family, etc. So there are so many policies, so many little things you can do. Okay, so diversity is just not a ratio of men to women or differently abled people to total, etc. It is a stream of things.
I don't want to extend that, but you gave example of PepsiCo, which is really positive, and then again Facebook when Kritika Reddy was there. Is it because the head of those organizations were women,
Not.
and hence those were taken a little more seriously?
Not true. In the whole PepsiCo world, there must have been 2 companies where women earned more than men. India was one of them. Even though Indra was the CEO, it was not in US, it was not in many other places. I can tell you that. Okay. So having a woman at the top helps. You know why? Role modeling. It helps. Okay. Because also the men are also serious after that. Okay. It helps. But it is not a reason why it will change.
When you're a leader in a corporate, your thought process is very different when you try to lead a startup. Because multiple factors come into picture, your financial position, your sustainability and everything. So what are few factors that you need to get away from your leadership role in a corporate and start focusing very differently in on that?
Good. See, if you look at history of organizations and team sizes and group sizes, people will tell you that the moment you have more than 100 employees, you need process. Okay. In large corporations, we have structures because we want to maximize the value of a structure. Structure divides people, but people unite structures. That's the role of leadership. When you're a small company, don't expect process. Don't expect discipline. All that will not help. If you have 30 people or 20 people or 10 people, everybody ends up doing everything else. That's the fun of being a startup. You have to recognize that. And when you get to 100 people, you need to recognize that you need a process. And that is why if you look at Silicon Valley, a lot of the startups which go up promptly invite a very experienced CEO to come and run their business, like Eric Schmidt in Google. Why do they do that? Because they cannot imagine the future and how a process and a system needs to run. So have great fun, but recognize when the time has to come for you to set in processes. So many people who leave multinational organizations and start startups, they start doing everything like a multinational organization. They'll fail. Because the comfort and the safety net of a multinational organization is very different from the safety net of a startup. You have to recognize that, okay? Startup works on energy, high octane. Keep that.
Any quick tips on how to look for winning mindset while recruiting?
A good question. Look at a CV. Okay, when I look at a CV, has he held leadership positions and has he won more over time from school? Okay, we see that, at least I see that all the time. Was he a captain in school? Was he head of a house, whatever it is? What did he do in college? You know, you can pick that thread very clearly, and in his own language also. Okay, you can very clearly pick. A winner talks differently from a whiner. You know, a winner talks opportunity all the time. He's seeking out. Okay, he doesn't get boxed in. That's what it is. Yes, please.
So my question is on ideas versus execution. So we are living in the era of ideas, but we also want deliver.
Absolutely.
Deliver results. So whether I'm making a hiring decision to hire someone or I'm looking out for a company. So how do I make a smart decision between someone who has a good ideas versus who has a background in good execution?
Yeah. So there are a lot of guys who are good at ideas. There are a lot of guys who are great at execution. There are very few guys who are good at both. Okay. And that being good at both requires much more lateral thinking and much more possibilities and, you know, what are the opportunities. He'll discuss that type of a thing. The guy with execution will get into the nitty-gritty and the detail. For example, you look at the durables industry or the car industry. If you ever talk to a service person in those industries and you ask him, what's your ambition? I want to be the best service guy. That's all he wants. Okay, they're deeply focused on execution. There are some sales guys who are brilliant at execution. Keep them there. The worst thing is to take an execution guy and make him an idea guy, or the worst thing is to take an idea guy and make him an execution guy. Because the idea guy into an execution guy, you get fairy tale. You know, you get only cloud in the air and nothing. Okay, you have to recognize who is the right guy for that. Again, the context is important. In one business, the guy might be bad. In another business, he might be good. Okay, but it's only practice that, you know, you get to know who's good at what.
One two-part question. The first is about microsensing. How do you build a framework of microsensing in your organization?
How do you build it?
A framework, like how do you actually get?
Very simple. Walk around the organization, talk to people. Okay, have lunch with people, have tea with people. So every business I go to, I have round tables. I get 10 people together, sit and say, okay, tell me what's going well, what's not going well, what do you think we should be doing? Be a naive listener. If you're a naive listener, you get a lot more feedback. If you keep talking to people, they'll say, yeah, you know, forget it, let's go now. Okay, naive listening is very, very important. Okay, challenge them with your questions, make them think differently. Then people will say, I'm happy to, you know, contribute. Okay, walk around as much as you can. Okay, the other one is sense when people are not good in a meeting, they're not informed. So it's quite likely that you have a meeting of 10 people, somebody who's really contributing in every meeting suddenly goes silent in that meeting. So after the meeting, walk out with him and say, hey, what happened? You're not in your usual batting form, what happened? Then he'll tell you, I have this problem, that problem, either with the company or with the boss or whatever it is. Okay, sense for difference in behavior and why it happens. Okay?
About change management, especially when you're new to an organization. So if, for example, you're at a mid-level position in the company and there are already staffs, and you've been hired specifically to change a particular mindset or changing the line. How do you get buy-in from people to convince them what they're doing is working and the idea that you're doing are happy?
Yeah, so every company which hires you will tell you that I want you to change things, but don't believe them. Okay, one of the biggest problems when you are a middle manager being hired from the outside is that you think you can change the culture. You cannot. Remember that. That's a big mistake people make. When you come as a CEO, you still cannot change it, but you have at least the authority to drive it. When you are a middle manager, first understand the culture and the system before you want to change it. Spend time. Check who your key stakeholders are. Understand why something is done in a particular way. Take your time. But once you get the buy-in and people say, hey, this guy is for the genuine good of the company, then it will be fine. Sometimes if they're doing something grossly wrong, then you have to prove to them with your experience and knowledge why your route is better. Okay, and for that, you have to have some signature strengths. If you have some signature strengths, you're acknowledged as being something damn good in a particular aspect, people will listen to you faster. Okay?
Sure. I still don't understand why you brought in stars and Nokia. So why you brought in CEOs who were stars in their own domains?
Very good. Good question. Thank you. The reason is, if you're a $500, $600 million company and your ambition is to be $4 billion, if you staff your organization with people who've run businesses of 100 million, they will think incremental 200 is damn good. But when you put a management team, a bunch of CEOs who've run $1 billion corporations, that energy itself will propel you up. That's what it is.
But isn't it quite worrisome to gel them up? So
That's where the leader has to be confident, and you have to give them that confidence also. So look at the guys we recruited there. Vineet Taneja, he's head of Dysons today, was running a very big portfolio for Hindustan Lever. Okay? Devendra Kishore was running another big portfolio for Hindustan Lever. Vipul Sabharwal was chief operating officer of Gillette. No, we had heavy hitters, not ordinary guys. Heavy hitters. And when we assembled the team and put them in front of the media, they said, wow, what a cricket team this is. So because they're carrying a reputation. The whole Gillette system talks very well of Vipul. So when you go out on the market, the Gillette guys want to join you. The Gillette distributors are saying, can I be your distributor? So there is an aura when you build a very strong leadership team. Okay, but that depends entirely on both the individual and the confidence of the leader. Okay, last question, then we close. Good that it's a lady, diversity.
So you have moved leadership positions from one big organization to the other. And whether you like it or not, you carry the baggage to the other institution, right? So how did you unlearn, and can you give some insights?
Oh, there are lots. So when I handle the cement business, when I tell them, why don't we try this? They say, yeah, you sold mobile phones and shampoos, the cement is different. I hear that all the time. In the textile business, no, Shiv, you don't understand textiles. Okay, so one of the things I've always done, it works for me, I don't know whether it will work for you. Before I joined Nokia, I talked to 200 to 300 people who were in the telecom ecosystem. Before I joined PepsiCo, I talked to at least 200 people who are in the soft drinks industry. I went and spoke to every single CEO who had retired from soft drinks, Vinita Bali, everybody. Okay, told, okay, tell me, why do people like drinking in a bottle vis-a-vis a pet? Why don't they drink a fountain? Okay. Today, I'm also running the textile business. Luckily, when I was in Turkey, I saw a book which was the history of fabric. Okay, I'm going to read it end to end over this weekend. Okay, when I had to handle the coffee business in Hindustan Lever, I read everything about coffee. When I had to handle the beverages business in Hindustan Lever, I read everything about tea. There is no substitute to knowing that industry. When you know that industry, then that blighter will respect me. Otherwise, he'll say, "Ye shampoo wala hai." He doesn't understand cement. Cement is, every industry salesperson says, my industry is different. Utter rubbish. The principles are the same. The customer facing principles are the same. The digitization, how cash comes, the principles are the same. But you have to understand the nuances of that industry. There will be some nuances. Transportation cost is a very high cost in cement. Location is a very important concept in cement. You have to understand the variables which are different in that industry, that's all. Okay? You just cannot blindly apply what worked in FMCG or telecom here. It doesn't work that way. Okay? So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and all the very best for your Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Shiv, for distilling your years of experience into that insightful and wisdom-filled talk. You stimulated a lot of thinking. I'm sure you microsensed that. Thank you for taking the time, and as a small token of appreciation.
Okay, this is an ISB tie given to me last year. That's why I wanted to. Your predecessor gave me this.
All right.